Welkom bij een nieuwe aflevering van de Nederlandse Kubernetes podcast. De podcast over Kubernetes voor iedereen. Ik ben Ronald Kers en natuurlijk is met mij...
Met jou. Hallo Ronald.
Ja, dus Jan Stomphorst, de Solutions Architect bij...
ACC ICT.
Juist,
Nog
goed
steeds.
zo. Oké, wil je wat kwijt?
Nee hoor, nee.
Nee, oké.
We werken er al zo lang. Dus,
Ja. Hey, we zitten hier op KubeCon.
nog steeds op QCon.
Ja.
En nog steeds in ons gezellig kamertje. Er was net wat koud, maar dat hebben we gefixt.
Ja, nou, heel goed. Nog steeds te melden? Of,
Nou ja, we hebben een hele leuke gast.
Yeah, we have found an interesting guest for our podcast, James Strong, Solutions Architect at Isovalent. Welcome, James.
Welcome. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, a pleasure to have you. And James, can you please introduce yourself to our listeners?
Well, like you said, my name is James Strong. I've been working with Isovalent now at Cisco for a year and a half. I've been doing networking for a very long time. I started in high school, did the Cisco Academy, CCNA, and, it's kind of, I wanted to work at Cisco, so it took about, 15, 20 years, but yeah, I got here.
Okay. And
Yeah.
What piqued your interest in the IT when you were a little boy? Why you want to work in the IT?
When I first got my first Dell, it was just like having fun and having control over that box. Like I was really mean to my siblings. I'm the oldest of 5, so I would like put the password on the BIOS. So even if they restarted it or tried to get their password on their account, they couldn't get into the machine. So it was just fun, having that type of control. And then the network, it just having they say a series of pipes, but it's just like solving that problem and putting those things together and just, connecting, information and people. It was just a really fascinating thing to me that we could talk to somebody all the way across the world or across the street. And, the internet did that. So it was really fascinating.
Yeah, indeed. You have a talk here at KubeCon. Can you tell us a little bit about what the talk is about?
So the schedulers really like me for some reason. So I have 2, and they are back to back. This is the second time this has happened. So I get to go from level 3 to level 0.
Yeah, you should get a badge for that or something.
I know, right? Lots of running. They're getting my cardio in. But yeah, we have 2 talks. So the first one is for the Ingress-NGINX maintainer talk. So me and one of my fellow maintainers, Marco from Giant Swarm, will be talking about our plans. So every 6 months at KubeCon, we talk about what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish, and then give updates. And with this one, we're talking about Ingress-NGINX's eventual archival. We say this because we want to migrate the project to Ngate. Ingress-NGINX is very popular. It's been around for, I want to say 8-10 years. And
Almost a decade. Too.
Almost a decade, yeah. So I don't have the numbers of the presentations in front of me. But it's got a lot of technical debt. There's lots of decisions that were made in the past at the time, and we looked at it with SIG Network and a lot of other folks, and we were trying to understand how can we migrate this project to a gateway API implementation, because that's the future for SIG Network. And it wasn't easy. We tried a couple things, we had lots of conversations, and we ultimately decided that it would be easier to start fresh with a new project. Take all of the learnings, the good and bad, from Ingress-NGINX, and do that migration to Ngate. So we're going to talk about that update, where we're at. That's our first talk, and we're going to talk about the fun CVE that we've been working on since December. So we will give an update on that one. And then the second talk, I am talking with Rob Scott, one of the Gateway API maintainers. One of the fun facts that we looked at when we're discussing what this migration would look like is that Ingress-NGINX does a lot. It does a lot more than the Ingress API spec, and not all of that is covered in Gateway API. I think the math that we saw, just looking at all of the fun annotations, it is only 55% of the functionality in Ingress-NGINX is in Gateway API.
Okay, so why are we moving in that direction?
Why are we moving that direction? Because Ingress API it's not deprecated, but it is feature frozen. We are not adding new features. We have not added new features for, I think, over 5 years now. And Gateway API is the next evolution. It's Ingress 2.0, people have called it. And it is more flexible, so it allows people to have differentiated roles. So you have folks who are just developers that just want the routes and everything. You have the infrastructure folks who can manage the load balancer, so it helps differentiate that role from an RBAC perspective. Ingress, one of the issues that we have is that an Ingress controller has lots of permissions. It has access to all of the secrets, which is one of the issues we had with the CVE.
The latest CVE, we patched the hell out of that. All our clusters, one day, every... Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. It was... The difficult part about maintaining, and with that issue in particular, is that we knew about it for 3 months, and we couldn't talk about it because of the embargo. Mm-hmm. That was a huge stressful piece of that. It's like, I had... as a solutions architect, I have customers who are running Ingress-NGINX.
Yeah, and
And I know, and I couldn't say anything about it. And it was very difficult from that respect, even with the folks that we knew that were running it. But yeah, to continue to go back is that Ingress API itself was only for like layer 7. It was very simple, and it had lots of permissions. And we're trying to differentiate that. We're trying to get things into the API spec. We're not trying to do things like with Ingress-NGINX, where we have lots of annotations to build out the functionality that wasn't in the API. So there's lots of reasons that go into why we want to do this migration.
Okay, and how do you see the adoption rate at this point?
That's
a fun question.
The folks listening can't see my face.
Well, if they look at the video,
it is not as great as we want it to be. That's part of the reason why.
Is it production ready already?
Gateway API? Yeah. There are implementations that are production ready. There are companies that you can migrate your Gateway API implementation to. It is because of breaking that simplicity into those roles and understanding how those APIs interact now. Ingress was very simple, but it also made it complex and had the RBAC issues. Now that we've broken it out, it makes it a little bit more difficult for the migration. There's, developers like documentation, they like examples, so it's like they're still working on getting folks to migrate, and we will have a survey out for folks from the presentation asking them why they see it as difficult. One of the things is like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So Ingress is working for a lot of folks.
But I think a lot of people only want layer 7 HTTP.
Yeah. I see a lot of requests of like, I had somebody in the Slack just yesterday, Monday, where they were asking for how to load balance their VPN with Ingress-NGINX.
Let's sink that in for a moment.
No.
That is a very good question.
But is that then a feature of Gateway API?
For VPNs, I don't think so.
Oh, I think,
There's people that ask for like storage, or we see lots of questions for like why not this or why not that. Well, the answer, one of the other maintainers is PRs are welcome. PRs are always welcome, but if it's functionality that you need to come to the community and have the conversation with us and help us implement those, or help us put together the gateway enhancement proposals to understand why that functionality is needed. The community can also help validate the API. So work through the process and work with the community to contribute back to that. So
what solutions are you looking for?
Yeah.
Right? Is this the right way
maybe
to do it?
maybe somebody else has solved it a different way. So it's like,
I can think about a few solutions. So port forwarding.
Yeah.
That's one thing that's not good in Ingress. So
it's not a great experience, in general.
No, it's but that's would be a good thing to have in Gateway API. That would be an enforcing thing.
I'm sure there's a gap asking for that.
Probably.
It was funny when we were looking through like the Ingress-NGINX functionality. We're like, even with Rob, he was like, we don't know, and then you came back a week later and it's like, oh, there is a gap for that. So somebody's asking for it, so it's like helping push that functionality. So there are lots of them. I have started delving in and working with the Gateway API community, joining the community meetings as much as I can, because I also have a day job.
Yeah.
it is, it can be difficult to stay on top of things. So I get that. I mean, especially, as embedded as I am with the community, it is still very difficult. Like, I can't remember. I mean, it's the same thing at my day job. Like, somebody asked me yesterday about like L2 announcements in Cilium. I was like, I've not used it. I've not had a customer that uses it. Let's go find somebody that has. So it's like, there's just so much information out there that it is difficult. And I try to have that sympathy when someone says, when they tried to upgrade to 112 for Ingress-NGINX, it broke some things because we broke some stuff between minor versions.
Redirections you broke, and I've got a list.
So that's why you brought me here. Okay, to air your grievances.
It's frustration.
No, it's not a frustration. My customer was
not happy about it. Yeah, no.
We had to patch really fast. So and we had one customer or two customers who were not 112 yet.
Yeah.
So they were in that update cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had to move forward really fast.
Yeah, we had someone in the Slack, in the Kubernetes Slack, ask us. They went from 1.4 to 1.12, and they were like, "What's changed?" I was like,
"Oh, that's a lot."
Yeah, good. I was like, "That's I would not go with that upgrade
Link to
path."
the document. And good luck with
that. And again, folks will ask us. They'll come in. And they'll ask us, like, why was this change? I was like, I read the changes and we put the changes through, but I'm not going to remember all of them off the top of my head. And he came back and he said, oh, here's the commit, here's this. So sometimes folks will just ask questions without looking first.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
RTFM, right?
Sometimes, yeah. We tried to produce the manual. That's one of my favorite questions when I'm doing the Ingress talk or the Ingress-NGINX maintainer talk, where it's like we'll talk about something we've broken. And we're like, who read the release notes? I'm in a room of 100, maybe 200 people, and like 3 people raise their hands.
Yeah.
But they get mad when I don't put them out there.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah.
We read them.
Yeah.
And then I forget them.
I forget them too. That's why we automated them.
Yeah.
So if you have like a company, you want to transition from the NGINX Ingress to the Gateway API, are there any tools or patterns or advice you can give in that regard?
Yeah, so fortunately there is a tool that will help take your Ingress manifests and as best as it can, right, it's like the 80-20 rule, give you a Gateway API manifest. So it's Ingress to Gateway, really great, really straightforward name. That project has this idea where it's called providers, and that provider is, there is an Ingress-NGINX provider, there's a GCE provider, I think there's also a Cilium provider, and it will allow you to give the Ingress manifest, and it will dump out what it thinks a gateway manifest should be. I looked at it for Ingress-NGINX. It supports 6 of the 118 annotations that we have. So it will, it gives you some kind of idea, but again, it's an approximation, and that also needs development and needs help. So that's also part of what we're looking at when we put together the Ingress-NGINX to Ingate migration. How can we have a responsible migration for folks to help them get on Gateway API? And that it's both of these things, right? Like we want to get rid of the technical debt, the issues, the CVEs that we have in Ingress-NGINX, and we want to have a migration path, and we want to improve Gateway API. So having folks move to Ingate, and it will help the Gateway API community as a whole. So one of the big things that we looked at is Ingress-NGINX provides like mod security, so WAF. That's not in Gateway API. There is a gap open for it, so it's like if you're using that feature, we need to know about it, we need to prioritize it, so that's part of the conversation as well. What of that 45% of functionality that folks use that's not in Gateway API? So if it does get standardized as a spec, other implementations can implement it as well. So trying to help the community as a whole.
Okay, because just like Ingress, Gateway API needs, just for listeners, needs software in there to run and that's Engage, because that's your
yeah, that's my project. One of the because it's a Kubernetes SIG project, we don't want to use the word reference implementation. It is not a reference implementation. want folks to migrate to Gateway API. The way that I was thinking about it, and I asked the kind maintainers if I could use this analogy. We want Ingate to be the kind of Gateway API. We want it to be something that developers can easily deploy and test and work through the migration, but not necessarily be a production Gateway API implementation. So we know folks are using Ingress-NGINX in a production environment. There's no paid support. It's open source. Like you have all of those other things, but it's like we want it to be easy to develop and deploy on, and to give folks an idea of what a migration would look like. Not necessarily that you are going to use Ingate in production. There's I think 40 plus other implementations, 30. I don't know the numbers, but to give folks a path forward.
What should be then the best and Gateway API application for in production?
Well, I'm gonna have to say Cilium because
of course.
those folks are my employer.
Besides Cilium, to give people an option.
Yeah, so there are lots of options. I know there's K-Gateway that just came out from the Solo folks. There's Envoy Gateway. I've been looking at that. I talked to the maintainers before we even. It was like before we presented the Ingate project. They were like, "Why don't we collaborate and work together on this project?" One of the thought process was like there are lots of Envoy implementations. Yeah. There's only one other NGINX implementation, and we weren't sure how well the translation from Ingress-NGINX to an Envoy implementation would be. And it was a little late in the game. It took us about 3 or 4 months having conversations with Gateway API and SIG Network. So we were already really far down the path of like doing the Ingate implementation. So there's that. So there's Envoy Gateway and Cilium, and I know there's lots of others that I'm just not thinking about.
And you've got like really Ingress application, so traffic is really big.
Traffic, yeah. And Istio, I'm sure has
Istio
a gateway
has
implementation.
Ingress, a big Ingress one. Are you seeing those also migrating like to Gateway API or? It's for me, and I'm doing Kubernetes like forever, I think, but it's still if I do connection to a cluster, I'm using Ingress. Yeah, there's no discussion on that.
It is a difficult migration. Just from that, it's the mind share. It's the I know what I'm comfortable with, and I think that's part of what we're trying to do with Ingate is to give folks that idea of what it would look like, to get people with that mind share to say, hey, Gateway API is the path forward.
We would like to have an NGINX kind of application for production on cluster API.
We're getting in the nitty-gritty now.
And of course you're from Isovalent and Cilium is the way. And I think I'm pro Cilium, by the way, but I think that's the future of the CNIs. But people have options.
People do have it's never been like a head-to-head clash, but it's always an interesting conversation. I mean, I had it with my boss yesterday about all of the work that I've been doing with the CVE. I was like, yeah, last week was a stressful week. So it's like it's never a clash, and there's never really a concern because I still support my customers, I still do my day job, but sometimes the open source has to take precedent over that. But it's been I'm truly beginning to wade into this conversation because I think it's been 2 years having this conversation about trying to migrate. So something always comes up. So we had a maintainer drop out, we have a new CV, or there's something, our release is broke. So there's always something right now. Our mind share right now is like 90-10 with Ingate with Ingress, and Ingress-NGINX is 90% of of our time. So we're trying to slowly shift into that and starting to see it's like, well, somebody asked us immediately, like, are you going to do extension points? I was like, well, we don't even have a repo. We don't have these things. So it's like, I'm just starting to, what is that? Throw my towel into the ring, the analogy. So being able to answer that question is difficult, but I think the whole point, in my opinion, is to make it not difficult and to shift folks into thinking they need to migrate. If they need new functionality, or if they need something that they thought would be in Ingress, that they need to go to the Gateway API community and help implement it there. Yeah. Because SIG Network has said they're not going to deprecate Ingress, the Ingress API, but they're not adding anything new. So if you need any type of higher level functionality than just layer 7, like the WAF or anything else, it needs to come from the Gateway API community. That's
And if you want to contribute to this, where do people need to look for?
Somebody asked me that yesterday at the Isovalent Hive Mind party, and I just started talking because it's I don't know about the listeners, but I have this problem where it's just like you have an interesting problem, you just want to sit down and start coding.
Yeah.
But that's not the appropriate approach. Like, and the problem is that we have to have all of these discussions. So it's like, are we going to use gRPC or just a JSON HTTP? How are we going to get the SSL? So there's lots of like design decisions that need to be made and documented so that folks can understand why we've done what we've done. Because a lot of times we'll see something we're like, well, that's there. It's like, why was WAF, why is the WAF support added? We don't know. So it's like we want to have these discussions. Maybe this is, also just my apprehension of a new project and not wanting to do the wrong thing, and just having these conversations with my other maintainers, having those conversations in the open. So we'll, to get back to your question, we have a dedicated in-gate dev Slack channel in the Kubernetes Slack. We also have we have discussions enabled on the GitHub repo and the Kubernetes SIG on in-gate. And then I also just have lots of documents open. So like one of the ones right now is like the communication between Ingress and between the controller and the data plane. What's that API look like? We just don't know. We don't know what we need right now. We don't know. We have some thoughts, but it's like, again, we don't want to just sit down and start coding things. We want to have these discussions. We want to make the right decisions. We want to not have some of the technical debt that we've had. So it's, it's a lot. So I've got those separate places, but I think a good funnel is the Slack channel on Ingress Dev to go from there. And then we also have the community meeting every 2 weeks.
Okay, cool. And you're from Isovalent, and we talk about Cilium, but there's one word we didn't mention this talk. That's eBPF.
That thing.
Yeah. Is there something that eBPF does in the Gateway API that's not in the Ingress? Is there like
So I would think that's, it's an implementation detail, because that's something that, Cilium does use for, the routing setup and, doing all of the things that it needs to do from that perspective. So that is also, I've looked at some eBPF code.
I don't know if it's too hard. Early morning in London.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I also think about I've had 2 folks come up to us and ask, well, why don't you do it in Rust? I'm like, I already have a huge molehill, like a huge mountain to get over. Adding a new language, because I would also have to learn Rust. So adding eBPF to the mix as well. It's another thing where it's just like I would have to find maintainers, because I don't write that. I'm not one of the engineers at Cilium.
It's an honest answer, so it's fair, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
What is the weirdest thing you've seen people do with Gateway API?
With Gateway API?
And the next time, that is the weirdest thing with Ingress, of course. But
yeah. So I've deployed the Cilium Gateway API implementation for testing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I talked about it earlier. I'm just beginning to wade into the conversation, actually become, I would say, part of the community. So I I can't really answer from like a weirdness perspective, but the answer to go through your follow-up, like I've seen people ask very interesting things like load balancing databases with Ingress-NGINX, load balancing VPNs as well. The one that really caught me off guard that I just didn't know people still use is SFTP. Someone wanted to use Ingress-NGINX to load balance their SFTP connection. So we allow folks to have like a custom port, a custom TCP port. It's something. It's a choice, but I don't know if I would be running SFTP in a Kubernetes cluster.
Yeah, if you want to migrate old workloads.
Yeah, I mean, it's enterprises use everything under the sun, and Kubernetes is great for a lot of workloads. I don't think I would use it for SFTP though.
Yeah, but it's like always maybe some guy in the woman in the 80s had to build a solution in the enterprise that uses this kind of stuff. And nobody knows what it does, so
but it needs to be done.
Migrate it that way.
Yeah.
What would your solution be then for transferring files?
If it wasn't SFTP?
Yeah.
Personally, so I just started building like a new NAS machine. So I was, working on setting up like Home Assist. I'm doing a lot of like self-hosting now, and I have how much was it? It was like 2.5 terabytes of data that I wanted to back up, and I was like, how do I do this? Like, this rsync and things like that. So I looked in, and I was using rclone. Rclone it allows you to talk to other data providers like Dropbox, Google Drive, Photon Drive, and you can copy these also locally. So I was using rclone. It worked pretty well. It's probably still running because I started it right before I left London, so I'm hoping it's still running.
But is it then using underwater, not kind of an implementation of SFTP?
That's the nice thing is that I don't need to know that if it's using SFTP, but as a sysadmin,
maybe that one guy that asked the question on the board is exactly that guy.
Exactly. Yeah. No. There's we see lots of things and we're just like, why? Like we get lots of questions at the booth, and it's just you've got to give them like a 5-minute answer or help them out. It's just like you start there and you just ask like, why? Like, why you want to dig into like I worked for GE and. They do the whole like 5 whys to get to like the real point of those things. But, at booths, you can't really do that. But as a solutions architect, that's one of the things we need to work on is like the customer will just come in with a wild ask. And we're just like, but why? Like, what are you really trying to get at? And have that conversation with them. I think I recently just had that with one customer where they were looking at a service mesh implementation. And what it turned out to be was, as we were talking with them, with the engineering team, it come to find out that we already had a feature that did the thing that they wanted to do, and it solved the issue for them. So just understanding what's the underlying reason, what's the business reason, or what's the technological reason for what they're trying to accomplish. Like they'll try to come up with a solution themselves, but sometimes the solution's already there. It doesn't have to be. It's not a novel problem. So. Just understanding and getting, digging a little deeper than the surface, or just understanding why.
Exactly. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just like Googling, and the answer is a service mesh, and not looking further than that. And then
service mesh is great, but for 99 of the workloads, it's not great.
Yeah.
But I always say, keep it simple, stupid.
Exactly, yeah. And my football and wrestling coach already said that.
Yeah. You know what's fun? We didn't, not either of us misspoke about the gateway API and turned it into the API gateway,
That's always fun. So it's like trying to Google kind. You usually like kind, and you're like, or it just comes up with like being nice to people. No, it's like, no, I want Kubernetes kind.
Oh, you want to be nice to Kubernetes? No. So I think we're up for our final question, Jan. So I give you the honors.
Oh, thank you. Our final question is always, what is the future of Kubernetes? And I think it's also broader, what's the future of Isovalent or Cilium? Or Cilium?
Would you like to see?
Yeah.
as we were talking, or as we're discovering this, I think one of the biggest issues that we have, I think, and this isn't a surprise to anyone, is that Kubernetes is a lot. It does a lot. Like, people want it to do everything. They want it to do SFTP, VPN, things like that. But it takes contributors to do that. It can be non-code contributors. Coding, like, as a maintainer, is not 100% of what I do. It's probably 20% of what I do. So there are folks that can, do the examples, do the user experience, have these conversations with folks, like understanding what they need and what. So from that perspective, it's really just being part of the community. It's difficult. Like, they'll ask us at the contributor summit, like, what's the thing that you need? It's like, contributors. We need folks to help understand the deep technical issues that we have. So it's not bearing the load on one person for, like, release or things like that. So it's I say this from a personal experience with Ingress-NGINX. We'll have 200 people at the meeting, but we'll have 2 people at the community meeting every month.
Yeah.
So it's having folks be more involved in the community, because it's Kubernetes is a huge project. KK itself is huge. There's lots of CNCF projects, and if you have an interest in getting involved, just ask. Like, somebody asked me yesterday, and I probably spent 20 minutes talking to him about some of the stuff that we need. So it's continuing to get new people involved. I think the last Salt Lake City that I went to, over 50% of the people, it was their first time to KubeCon, and that's KubeCon's great. It's fun. You get to meet. I like to say I meet my online friends in real life, but it needs more folks
to contribute.
Yeah.
Okay.
To me, that's the biggest concern with the project. Like, you look at it, in 20 years, Kubernetes will be the COBOL of the world, right? And they'll have trouble finding people to have the experience. So it's like, we want to continue to grow the project, grow the sub projects, and that's to me that's the biggest issue facing it now and in the future.
Yeah. Well, we at least can help spread the word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In our own way, we contribute to make a podcast and help people to find Kubernetes.
The Slack channel.
Slack channels.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, lots of conversations in Slacks, lots of conversations in GitHub. Yeah. If you want to get involved, I would say get involved. Like, just take the leap. Like, I got started with Ingress-NGINX by answering the ask on the Google Dev. Like, they just came out and they said, Ingress-NGINX maintainer is stepping down. I was like, that doesn't sound good. And I just asked, a coworker, and they were like, yeah, do it. So it's like, just take the leap. We're very opening. We will help guide people into whatever they want. So it's like,
yeah, even if they're new, right? You can onboard them and help them along the way.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't be afraid.
So, more maintainers.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. I think that's a great thing.
That's always my biggest concern. So it's like, when you talk about the future, it's like, yeah.
Okay. Well, James, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was lots of fun.
And hopefully the next time we speak, we have a lot of contributors to talk about.